Oh, they've done it! Simon Taroda, an instant hero! Can you believe it? Plenty attacking! No! The comeback is complete! A stunning second half from Schalke!
Blau, weiß sein Leben lang. Herzlich willkommen zurück auf SchalkeMerica. Welcome to episode 174 of SchalkeMerica. I'm your host, Richard Carmen. Joining me, as always, for this Victory Monday podcast after a loss on a Wednesday on the midseason review, Jack Mangan.
A lot of qualifiers for this episode, apparently. But yeah, hello to you, sir. Glad to be with you before we head into a extremely extended Winterpause.
Yes.
Very strange setup, of course, with the World Cup starting imminently. Lots to talk about. Happy to probably get a break from Schalke for a little bit, which is usually the case, honestly, over the past couple of years. But yeah, a little bit longer of one. Hopefully, we'll have some entertainment, at least in the meantime, with the World Cup.
Yeah, the Maya Yoshida World Cup here. He may surprise us here, but yeah, no, it's we're celebrating a Victory Monday despite the game with Bayern. We finally won, and it's been a while. Obviously, the two games, English Woche last week. I don't know how long ago it was. It felt so long ago, but we played Mainz. Finally got a win. Simon Taroda with a beautiful goal. Wonderful play by Kral as well. And then, went to Bayern. We played Bayern pretty tough. It wasn't the 8-0 game some of us were fearing. We held them pretty good for most of the game. Yeah, they were taking their shots, but we kept it tight. So that's all we could ask. And I think it's been the Rice experiment, the Rice management hiring seems to be working off now. It's in the 2 weeks that he's been on the team. There's been a noticeable difference, at least I've seen, I think, Jack, I don't know about you, between the way the team's been playing in terms of intensity, fight, and all that stuff. What about how you've been viewing the couple weeks of Rice so far?
Yeah, I mean, results-wise, not much of an improvement. 3 losses out of his first 4 games, but 2 of those were against top 4 teams at the time in Freiburg. In Bayern, I think that the performances in those losses were improved. I'm not saying that we were playing great football, but from an organization standpoint, from a structural standpoint, some things do appear to have been tightened up a little bit. We've seen some changes in terms of squad selection as well. Kral seems to be getting sort of reintegrated. It looked like he was going to be, more of a player earlier in the season and then sort of fell out of favor, it appears, with Kramer for whatever reason. He's definitely been a favorite selection of Rice so far. I think that's potentially a good thing for us. Yeah, and then of course, we broke the was like an 8-game losing streak at that point against Mainz.
Something
we
like
said that we
yeah.
had a good feeling about the Mainz game on the podcast, so clearly we're geniuses. No, but
not me.
Nice to see. Oh yeah, I'll take the credit for that. Sure, yeah. Nice to see Terada get back on the score sheet as well. It's something that we haven't seen a lot this season, and just a brilliantly taken goal from him too. His I think it was his second touch on that was just unbelievable. That steadying touch, like poetry in motion. Good stuff from the big man there, and limited but present reasons for some amount of optimism. For the second half of the season.
Yeah, I 100% agree. In the background, we did promise the next Victory Monday that we would play Wafflo's hit for the summer, fall, whatever you want, Franky Kramer remix. Anyway, it was a nice change of pace. I think seeing Kral inserted into the starting lineup was like, is he the guy for us? But I thought he played pretty well in that game, and obviously that pass that sprung to Roda, especially the angle you see from the sideline, was a beautiful pass by him. And I think Kral overall in the last 2 games, really maybe 3 games, going to go back to the Freiburg game, he's been pretty good. I think him and Kraus are now looking like a formidable team because he brings that little bit of grit, and you never know what's going to happen with him, but it works.
I mean, I think Kraus is probably the undisputed MVP of the first half of the season. I mean, would you agree with that?
I would agree.
Yeah, he's been great. Flick was okay, fine, for most of his appearances. Once again, I'm not upset though to get Kral reintegrated. He's somebody that kind of comes into the club with a little bit higher of a profile, a little bit more expectation, and obviously didn't look like he was going to be living up to that early on. Still has a long ways to go, I think, to actually live up to that. But once again, under Rice, some recent performances I think have been a little bit more promising out of what you're seeing from him, what we may see from him in the second half of the season.
Yeah, it's interesting. There was obviously talk between, obviously Millet is another guy and Karaman, guys who came into the squad and really took a while to adjust, even though Karaman's been in the league before, Millet not necessarily, and Kral as well. It took them some time to adapt, and we've seen, at least with Karaman and Kral, their performances have improved, as has Schalke. And so I think it's really nice to see. I agree with you. Kraus is the undisputed MVP of the first half. Drexler probably a close second. Bulter had some influential moments as well, but Kraus is certainly most consistent out of the bunch. And then, hey, I agree with you. Flick played decently, but now we're seeing Kral has added an element to the game that made Kraus continue to look good, better. But Kral has added a element of defense and now offensive ability, because he's making some runs, right? He had some good opportunities against Mainz. He had some long shots against Bayern. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully they can carry this. I mean, I think that we limped along into the break. Obviously, we need the 2 months off. Schalke, that is. And so hopefully now Frank Kramer pretty much has like an off-season kind of to warm these guys up, because not many of our guys are going to be involved in the World Cup. Obviously, guys like Yoshida and a couple other guys here and there. But yeah, it's a nice change of pace there.
Yeah, I mean, Yoshida playing in the World Cup, I think it's Kral, Kraus, and Chananoglu that also have national team call-ups, not to the actual World Cup, of course.
Right,
but they're going to have some amount of duty during the break. And yeah, I mean, listen, I think the Mainz game and some of the games recently are sort of more indicative of the level that we'll probably have to play at to find a way out of this. And that's to say, like, I'm not expecting that we're going to be able to, consistently really compete or beat teams, in the top 4 or whatever the case is. But I think as long as we can do damage limitation against those teams, once again, not losing by a big scoreline to Freiburg, not losing by a big scoreline to Bayern Munich, and then actually being competitive and picking up some wins against, some of those more mid-table and lower table opponents such as Mainz that like we would expect. If we can do that, that's the recipe that can potentially get us out of this. Now, obviously, we're going to have to rattle off a decent number of wins. It's not going to be able to be a lot of draws, and everything. Like, we're going to have to get some legitimate results. But like I said, once again, I think Rice has done something. Is it enough? Who knows? But yeah, I do think there has been an improvement. I'm going to take the opportunity, I think, over this break, once some stuff comes on with work, to probably rewatch a couple of these games with the early Rice area and get a better sense from what he's trying to implement. But yeah, I think all eyes now at this point just kind of turn to the January market and the potential return of a number of injured players, and then also, what additional moves can be made, in the winter to bolster this team in various areas of the pitch to try to, make the difference and potentially push us out of that relegation zone.
Yeah, there's a lot of spots you could look to that maybe improve. One of the buddies of our show, Schalke Corner, he came out with a tweet, and let's see if I can find it here, about players he wants to see move on, players that he thinks that could we should hold on to. And it's interesting there, because I don't necessarily agree with what he wrote, but it had an interesting list there. Yeah, I mean, the obvious one you want to start with, obviously, is going to be in goal, right? Schwolow. He's made up for it in the last 2 games. I thought Bayern, he was really good, and also Mainz, he was good when called upon. But outside of him, I mean, he's been struggling most of the season, and that's it's hard to have a vote of confidence with him. And obviously, Ferriman's been injured, but Ferriman's around the same, and then Hurricane, whatever the third striker, third goalie is, it's question marks. And so I'd like to see improvement goal. I don't know about you.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think when you look at this is not necessarily, there's different ways to interpret this, but when you look at some of the underlying like XG statistics for Schalke at the moment, I think we have like an expected goal difference of -8 right now. Something crazy. So like I think we've been expected to we've been expected to concede like 24 or 25 goals, depending on which underlying data you're looking at, and we've actually conceded like 32. So you could argue that potentially some of that's a little bit of like unluckiness, and if that kind of regresses to where it would expect that we could actually improve our performances a little bit. Not that 24 goals would have been a great defensive performance in the first half of the season, but it's significantly different than 32 and kind of at least puts us in the mix a little bit more. So you could argue that like that, that could be on the horizon. The problem is it's like, why are we underperforming the expected goals allowed mark? And I think, I don't know how fair it is to attribute, a huge chunk of that to the goalkeeper, but I think certainly some of that has to actually just be down to Shvolov conceding goals that do not have high XG totals associated with them, whether it's, some of his mistakes in the air that lead to like easy shots or just the times where he's been unsighted and somehow let something in that is from outside the box or the edge of the box through traffic. And once again, is not particularly a high potential opportunity that somehow turns into a goal. So I think Shvolov has made a lot of mistakes. Schalke have already come out. I forgot exactly when it was, but I think it was a couple weeks ago, or at least, if not more, where they already announced that they have no intention of extending Shvolov or trying to purchase him past his single year loan. He's going to be returning to his parent club. So, I mean, the fact that they're doing that before the midway point of the season, I think is also an indication that they're not happy with him. The question is, what can you do about it? Do you have confidence that Ralph Fairman is the solution? He's been shaky over the past couple of years, obviously a club favorite, somebody that means a lot, despite his recent cake drama, whatever was going on with that. I mean, all the stuff in the locker room was very silly, but do you have confidence that he's the one to do it? Likewise, do you give it to 21-year-old Justin, Hikarin or whatever his last name is, and just kind of, because we signed him recently too. I mean, you brought him into the club, you give him the reins, see what he can do. I think the good news for us potentially about the Shvolov situation, if we do maybe we end the loan early, I don't think that's going to happen or anything like that. But despite the fact that he makes like $2.5 million a year in salary, I believe he took a significant salary reduction to join Schalke to kind of make sure he could get playing time. So I do not believe we're contributing anywhere near that amount to actually, use him at the moment. It's a conundrum. I think it's a huge issue. I think it's definitely been hurting us. Our defensive issues in terms of the back line and the availability of those players is a whole other conversation. You need a goalkeeper that can at least, make most of the saves you need to make, limit the mistakes. And unfortunately, he's been adding to the problems for the most part rather than helping our cause in any way.
Yeah, that's a tough thing too. It's like, what do you do? We're limited with funds. The limited funds that we have, what is it, 3.5 million euros? Where do we focus it on, right? And an area that many people will look to is the defense, right? Our defense, we said it many times, it's not Bundesliga level. It's maybe Zweite level. Granted, Brunner at times is very consistent. The last 2 games, he's been more offensive minded. He's been given that freedom under Rice. Matriciani's come on and gangbusters the last couple games. He's played really well. Can he hold that? I don't know, but it's certainly the game against Mainz was the best game he's played ever. I mean, that was a pretty good
for sure. Yeah, he was actually legitimately very good in that game.
Yes. And that tackle he made at the end in the goal area, that was fantastic. And then against Bayern too, pretty good. Yoshida, he's getting up there in age. He has the wherewithal as a veteran to know how to catch the runs and play the position well, but the pace has been lacking for him. When is Kaminski coming back? When he comes back, I feel more confident because he's a ball playing defender. He's maybe not Bundesliga level, right? And then Sepp Vandenberg, he played well before his injury. Another guy, Kalachik, I don't know if he's going to get any playing time. He's just a body at the moment. And then at left back, question marks. Oyan, who was arguably an MVP last year outside of Toyota, hasn't seemed on par this season. And then Moore, who's playing out of position, doesn't look that great. Granted, against the last 2 games, he's been decent. But again, that back 4 is an issue for me. And I probably would focus on the center backs, but we have some guys coming back from injury. I don't know when, but Vandenberg and Kaminski are going to be huge. And then obviously, hopefully, Yoshida can find a way to counteract that speed issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think the center back issue at the moment is the most glaring deficiency in the squad, but the problem is, once again, how much of that is just because the players that we have are below the level and how much of that is because the players we have are unavailable entirely. The Vandenberg injury appears to be a little bit more up in the air. There's really no definitive timetable for his return. I should say Grimal, I think. Sorry, my bad.
Grimal,
Grimal. There's no definitive timetable for his return. I don't know if we should be expecting to see him until maybe mid-spring at the earliest, honestly, is kind of what it seems like at the moment. Vandenberg is more likely to be back for, the January training camp and the friendlies, I think. So getting Vandenberg back would be great because, outside of his, what I think is maybe his first initial appearance when he had been at the club for a couple days, and made a mistake. He seemed to be kind of rapidly growing into that position and doing okay alongside Yoshida. So I think getting him back will be big. As far as Zizek or whatever his last name is, I mean, I don't really have much of an opinion on him. I don't think we've seen a whole lot of him so far. Kaminsky, I mean, like, what is going on with him? Like, his injury was a laceration, right, to the calf.
Yeah, and he got surgery in September. And
I didn't realize there was a surgery component to this, but I was like,
it was minor though. It was minor.
Did he get hit with a sword? I mean, what happened? Because he played the first game of the season, and then I forget exactly when the injury happened, if he was like available the next couple games or if he was hurt immediately. But like, he's been out the remainder of the season, probably 10 games, at a minimum, where he's been unavailable due to injury for this like laceration on his leg. It's a very strange situation. Maybe there's been more news about this and I've just missed it, but I'm surprised that he hasn't been back at all. As you said, concerns about whether or not he'd actually be a Bundesliga level. I'd at least like to see it. And certainly worst case scenario, not a bad guy to have in rotation if he isn't, as you mentioned as well, a little bit better in possession. I don't know if I'd straight up call him a ball playing center back, like out and out.
He was beautiful last year.
But, definitely has that capability, the ability to, contribute in the final third as well with some nicely weighted lofted balls or, whatever the situation is, can play some of those long balls. So yeah, absolutely. Kaminsky could be potentially a benefit to the team. I think the fullback situation is a little bit less worrisome. Obviously, Oweyan hasn't been playing to the level that we would have expected based on his performances last year. Like, he was a guy that we expected to translate to the Bundesliga pretty much fairly seamlessly, where like Kaminsky was a guy that we always had some concerns about potentially transferring. But yeah, I mean, I'm not openly worried about that. I like Çalhanoğlu as well. So I think as long as those two guys are healthy, we're okay. It's just the issue is when you start playing Tobias Moore there a lot, I'm a little bit less confident in that. Aydin, I think, has looked decent when we've seen him. We just haven't seen a lot of him.
Yeah.
Brunner, we've said it repeatedly. He's been fine for the most part, but just very uninspiring and doesn't contribute a lot going forward. Perhaps Rice will give him some of that freedom, as you said. Perhaps it's something that he wants to put more of an emphasis on in his own game and try to get forward.
He has said that recently.
Regardless, we need more service to our strikers. We struggle to obviously connect a lot of passes and build up. If we can get more of that production in terms of those, those wide deliveries from the fullback position advancing up the pitch, I think that would be helpful to our offensive game in general. But yeah, center back is obviously is a concern. Hopefully it can get somewhat addressed by return of injuries. The goalkeeper position, I just think something has to change there.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. And one of the areas that we're probably the strongest in is probably the midfield. Kraus, MVP of the season for us. Flick's been decent this year. Kral's came up big towards the end. Lat says it's been a good body to have in there. Who else has been there? Molet, to be determined, I guess, still with him. He has some flashes here and there. Rodrigo Salatar is sorely missed. I don't know when he'll be back. We need him.
He's supposed to be returning as well with Vandenberg, hopefully, for the camp. Good. So we're optimistic that we'll get those two guys back, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of a blessing in disguise because they could go to World Cup and get injured, right? Or they could go to World Cup and get an emotional high and continue that, right? So we've seen that a lot with players as well. But, it sucks missing him because he's been our emotional leader. He's one of our emotional leaders on the team, probably with Dominic Drexler, I would say. And not to have him there scoring those big goals for us is a huge part of our soul gone. So having him back would be huge. Who else am I missing from the midfield? Those are the main key players, I guess. But yeah, I think our midfield is pretty good. I think I don't even know if we need depth because I think we're okay. That's one position I think I'm comfortable with.
I think central midfield and defensive midfield are definitely in an okay spot. As you said, the partnership of Krall and Kraus, and then Flick and Latza sort of as replacements to that. Zalats obviously coming back. I think kind of our main deficiency at the moment is, particularly if Thomas Rice is going to continue to play in a 4-2-3-1, is we just don't have effective wing play at all. Those wingers, it's been like Karaman playing out there sometimes, or Bolter. And once again, I've talked about Bolter in, wide areas in the final third, but I like that in terms of like him kind of shifting there as he's arriving there, as opposed to like a starting position of him playing isolated out there. Tobias Moore, we think would probably be more effective in that position than he is at left back, but he's not exactly your typical, winger in that sense. Jordan Larson, who, we've signed permanently, just like, I think we want to see more of him in the second half of the season, maybe in even a different position centrally or as a striker or something, right, as opposed to winger, but he hasn't been effective either. So I think for me, the central defensive midfield is okay. I think it's when we get into the more attacking midfield winger roles that we have a little bit more of a question mark in terms of what we want to be doing. That to me has to get better. I mean, a lot of this I think is definitely the lack of service and the lack of competency that we have in build-up play in general is hurting our goal return. I don't think it's necessarily an issue with once again, Marius Bolter and Tirada just being completely out of the Bundesliga level. Maybe we have the blinders on because we like these guys. I think if they had more service and more opportunities, they would be okay. I think it's, some of more of those, the people that we would be relying on for the creativity. That's what's sorely lacking at the moment. Yes. And the ability to kind of maintain possession and So I don't know how we address that because we do have a lot of attackers or attacking midfielders in the squad. I mean, I mean, we have Polter as well. I mean,
we finally saw Sidi Sane against Bayern, right?
Sure.
I mean,
and the guys that I would consider calling up from the youth team, once again, those are the forwards and not the positions that we're lacking. I'd be looking at a guy like Top, right? I think he made an appearance. He's already made a senior team debut at some point, but doing well, for the U19s again at the moment. But that's not, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's surprisingly or unsurprisingly, Dominic Drexler has been our most creative player this season, especially with Salazar going down. But we shouldn't expect that from Dominic Drexler. If he does that, fantastic. We what do you want from his work rate, right? His consistency in that regards. The fact that he's been providing goals and assists is just a cherry on the top.
For sure, but very different roles, right? Yes. Zalazar is all about ball progression, largely, and then also some finishing product. And Drexler is more about very good decision making, very good vision, picking out the right pass at the right time. But we've sorely lacked Zalazar's ability to just blow past the line of defense and open things up on in transition. He's huge there. We just don't have another player like that.
Yeah, what I'm questioning is when Salazar comes back, he should be on the pitch. You like to have Drexler on, especially because what he's been doing. You don't want to get rid of the Kraus-Krall partnership. Bolter is probably of all the top attacking guys on our team. He's been the most Bundesliga-like player in terms of consistency, in terms of his output. Against Bayern when he freaking torched Kimmich, and Kimmich went down there and got created a chance. That's what we want to see from Bolter. He needs also Tirada too. Tirada needs to get the ball to himself, like you said earlier. The right wing position has been an issue for us. Whether you put Drexler there or Salazar or what, or go to a 3-5-2. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, we played a lot of 3-5-2 last season. I don't know if that's an option. We don't have necessarily the center backs to play that, but Karaman, he's been playing better as of late, and Polter is a nice substitute for Tirada, but the lack of creativity is missing. And I guess for the 3.5 million euros, if we don't know we have to know what the status is of our center backs first, the ones that we have on the team, right? One of the guys going to come back, and then maybe if you can find the right winger or attacking winger, maybe that'll help, because we sorely miss creating chances. I mean, we want to be the attacking team going forward, but it's going to be hard when we can't create chances. And Tirada and Bolter, these guys need the opportunity to service to make an impact in the game.
Yeah. And look, the Bayern game, obviously they were possession dominant, 70-30. In the Mainz game, it was closer to 50-50 though. So I mean, I think, and hopefully that's a sign of what can be accomplished against more reasonable competition with Rice. And then we just need players that can take advantage of that. I think part of the issue is we haven't had the players that can once again help us build. It's all transition moments from us for the most part. I don't know. I think with a slightly improved structural organization, if we bring in, that one or two extra players that can open some things up, maybe we can be in a slightly better position. I don't know. I'm still not too optimistic about how we're going to finish this season, but Rice has been slightly better than expected. And now it's just a question of what additional pieces can we bring in and how much of an impact can they make. I think if we're a healthy squad, we're a much better squad than we've shown, at least being more competitive in certain games and hanging in there. Maybe the results wouldn't be, but I think our general opinion of the team would be much improved if we had full health. We're lacking a little bit of an X factor at the moment.
And we're 4 points behind Bochum, who are just one point or position ahead of us, I should say. But interesting comments from, first, that game against Mainz, and even Bayern to an extent, but mostly that game against Mainz, that's how we have to play. That's how we want to see the team play, is, passion, grit, fight for 50-50 balls. Tarota completely had a monster game, I thought, going after loose balls. Crawl, I mean, the whole team really. Patriciani was fantastic in that game. Just the competitive or not edge, but the fight that they had. That's what we want to see in the team. And if they play like that, we have a chance. And I thought the comments made by Rice post Bayern was that going forward, we're the hunters now. And playing the way against Mainz is a recipe for getting out of relegation. Doesn't mean you're going to go mid-table or anything, but I think it'll get us out of relegation if we get play that way every game. Is that going to kill our energy every game? Yes. Hopefully we don't get too many 3 games in a week like we did this last couple times this season so far. But that's the recipe for victory. You need Tarota to be a bulldog like that. You need Tarota. Well, Tarota's always, Bulter's always fighting. But Drexler, all these guys going for the 50-50 balls. The key stat for me in that Mainz game was that we had like a big advantage in the 50-50 balls in that game, and that's what you have to do. You're not going to do it against Bayern necessarily, but we made it difficult, right? And so if we could do that going forward, starting out with Frankfurt on the 21st, we will put ourselves in a better position. Plus those healthy bodies, I think, will help a long way.
Yeah, I think, Rice mentioned we have to play, as the Hunters. And that's why in January we're going to be unveiling Klaus-Jan Huntelaar returning, but give us some goal threats. But no, I mean, I think that's correct. I think, Farfan, right? Is he still playing? He was playing as of like
Peru,
a year or two. Yeah, he's up there in years now. He's like what, like mid upper 30s.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's correct. You don't want to be reckless, but I think from a mentality standpoint, you have to just sort of believe that you're playing with house money. Like this is not a situation where you're in 14th. And the anxiety is that you're going to drop further. And so you're playing scared and you're playing, tepid. Like you're in last place. You're at the bottom of the table. You're underperforming Bochum. I mean, like this is like, there's no reason to be, you just have to go out there and you have to go for it. And they have to play with that chip on the shoulder and the edge, like you're talking about, as Derek Ray always says on the commentary, Maloker mentality, like that kind of thing. So you have to, And I think hopefully they can take that forward. As we've said repeatedly on the last couple podcasts, this winter break is a very good opportunity for Rice to really, try to implement something. It's an opportunity that you typically wouldn't have in terms of a new manager coming in mid-season. And then there's just an endless stream of games kind of coming your way. Yeah, he's had a few obviously to start his tenure, but now there's a time to he's had a small sample size to kind of evaluate the squad in terms of working with them, in terms of seeing them in games. Maybe has a little bit of an understanding of what he's working with now. Can go into the January transfer window, make a move or two, and then can try to like really have an effective training camp. Hopefully that, the team comes back healthy, rested. Once again, there's not a ton of people going to the World Cup, literally one person, and then a couple other people on European duty. But like, this is not, where 30% of our squad is, like we're, look at like a Bayern Munich, right? Where like so many of their people are going, to various World Cup squads. It's a good opportunity for us. And I hope that we're able to, reset and take advantage of it.
Yeah, it'll be huge. And, if we take Rice for his word about how they want to play, maybe the attacking position is somewhere where they're going to focus the money on. There's not much money to go with. We still got that sporting director clout we got to figure out here, which will probably be June in our luck. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this works. But I think this World Cup window came at the right time for Schalke because Rice gets the opportunity, like you said, he gets to evaluate his team for his first 4 games, whatever, and now can kind of know how his team's got to shape up, and then 2 months to kind of ship him into shape. They've been practicing lately. I've been watching, and it's getting better. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully they can continue where they left off in terms of the intensity and stuff like that. But I think that's the recipe for victory going forward. I can't think of who they would sign, but
yeah, for sure. Real quick shout out, just because I just mentioned Bayern a second ago. Wanted to shout out Musiala, who I thought is just ridiculously good.
Yeah,
I mean, watching him against Schalke, I was like, this kid is
that back heel was
something else. Anyway,
As
Schalke supporters, we are of course big fans of youth talent and younger players coming through. So Musiala, pretty crazy. Anyway,
Bayern, if you want to loan him to us, for free, let us know. Looking back at this season, any games that stuck out for you this season, good or bad? There's more bad, obviously, than good. Like to starters, right? I'll just say the code matchup, the first game of the season. We had all this optimism come from the Zweite Liga. we're gonna do so well this season, and we got a punch in the mouth first game, losing 3-1. Not of it was a good way. It was mostly goals against. They were taking goals taken away. VAR get involved unnecessarily. A stupid red card that shouldn't have happened, and then everything went against us in that game, and not the way to start. That was a big thing for me because I didn't think necessarily Cohen was that much better than us, but we only got to see 20 minutes or something of that nature, even strength, and then we were down a man for the rest of the game. It was over at that point.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that shout out. I think that's a good one for the reasons you said. And it was partially also part of the basis of it didn't go our way, but in terms of where we think the squad might be from a competitive level, we could have gotten something out of that. We might be okay, that kind of a thing. But then sort of related to that, I think the other one that stands out to me early on is just the 6-1 loss.
Yeah.
Because look, you can lose games when you ship 6 goals. It's a bad day at the office, and I think it speaks to often something a little bit deeper going on in the squad. And I think when we saw that, I was like, "Ooh, that's a problem." And if that starts becoming the norm in terms of we're going to start conceding 3 goals, 4 goals a game, we're in big time trouble. So that was the other significant one in terms of sort of a mood shift, I think, within the supporter base early on. Outside of that, I don't know. There's been a lot of hard slogging matches.
I think that
Bayern's breaking the streak, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, that was good. No, I was thinking that the camel that really broke our back was the Augsburg match. We were fighting with them back and forth, and they got that game-winning goal in the 77th minute through Hahn. And from that point on, we started getting embarrassed. We started giving up goals a lot, right? We lost to Leverkusen 4-0, Hoffenheim 3-0, Hoffenheim again 5-1 in the return. Hertha, we shouldn't have lost that game, and we found a way to lose that game. Kanga scoring so late in that game. It just was game after game after game. It was all because of the Augsburg game. I think if we won that game or even drew that game, it would have been a different result. But yeah, that kind of set a chain reaction of porous events that ultimately led to Frank Kramer's dismissal. But that was a big game. I remember it was entertaining to watch, but I remember we played so poorly defensively. We had no right giving up those goals that we did in that game against Augsburg, and then just to beat them, a team we thought we should have beat. I think we were ahead of them at the table at that time because first 5 games of the season we had 2 losses, but we had a win and 3 draws or something crazy too. So we started out fairly well. And then that Augsburg game, a team we were right around the same time at the table, it was just dismal after that.
Yeah. I wish there was more standout games from a positive note. Just haven't been that many wins so far, and there's been a lot of lopsided results going the opposite direction. Hopefully more to hold on to in the second half. And the other problem too is lowest scoring team in the league right now. 13 goals for? So there's not even a lot of highlights to point to in terms of wasn't that a really well worked goal, a really nice goal that was scored. There's not a lot of things to point to. Last year we had Tirada setting obviously a single season record or whatever. So just from him alone, a number of goals to pick from in terms of great moments. And obviously
his best goal was his last goal.
So I don't know. I just in general, I kind of want to still hold on to a little bit of hope and be optimistic. I definitely think it's too early to give up on the season and start planning for the second division. I think we can turn this around. We need to be healthy and Rice needs to kind of continue the little bit of momentum that we've had so far.
Yeah, and I guess the other major talking point is obviously the music we just played earlier from El Wafflo from Franky Kramer. Obviously with the hiring of him, it was always question marks with him, but we felt that he had the mentality to be for Schalke. He understood what we were and stuff like that, but it just never worked out. Whatever, it didn't resonate with the team. We heard some grumblings of infighting or disagreements at times. And eventually the results, one after the other, just kept dropping and dropping. And eventually he had to go. Embarrassing defeat after embarrassing defeat. We saw this with Tedesco. We saw this, the year that we relegated, how bad it was. And then brought in Rice, and obviously say what you want to say about the hiring of Rice, but the last couple weeks that he's been here, there has been an improvement, and there was no fight with the team. That was the problem with the team, whether it was Kramer's fault or not. The team was not there. They were not giving the effort, at least what it looked like, right? There's no fight in the game, going 50-50 balls. They never won any of the balls there. long balls. They weren't doing anything. And then that Mainz game was a complete 180 of most of the things we saw this season with them. And I can only contribute that to Thomas Rice. And I've seen some of his statistics and some of the pretty goals that he's had under when he was at Bochum. Funny that our second win of the season or first win of the season was when Rice was at Bochum. But I have a lot of optimism. I mean, I don't know. I don't expect mid-table, but I expect us to, if we can play like we played the last couple of games, I'm very optimistic. Whether we can or not, we'll find out the first week or two in the Ruckrunde.
Well, I'm glad that you're more optimistic than I am, and I obviously hope to be proven wrong in terms of my level of optimism. Yeah, it's not over yet. Definitely not over yet. It's not going to be easy, but it's still very much mathematically possible and possible when you look at the performances of some of the teams around us. I do feel that our squad is a healthy squad is potentially better than what we've showed so far. So, and now we have what appears to be a more competent manager than we did to start the season, with a lot of time before we restart to make some tweaks and further cement some of his ideas. So,
yeah,
onwards and upwards, my friend.
We got to at least catch our friends at SchalkeMerica, who are technically up top of us at the moment, 16th position. But like we said when we had them on, when Travis is on here, we should be looking at trying to get 12, 13 spot, 6 points from off the bottom. Is that attainable? Yes, but we have to improve drastically going forward. And there's games that we can win. Mainz was 11th place when we beat them. So I mean, the teams from like outside of Europe and downward, they're all beatable, and we got to do well in those games. Hopefully we get some luck, and hopefully we get some players back that are healthy that can help contribute, like Rodrigo Zalazar. Obviously the teams that are in Europe, it's a little bit difficult to play against. Even though we played Freiburg well, we played Bayern fairly decent. We had the Rivier Derby. It was obviously a close game. We played Wolfsburg and Werder Bremen tight this year. Gladbach, they were in the top four at the time when we drew them 2-2 the second game of the season. So yeah, we need luck and hard work. It's the Schalke mentality.
Honestly, the Gladbach game may have been the best the team ever looked under Kramer.
True.
In terms of organization, and I mean, like, it was a very coherent performance, I thought.
Yeah.
And also was part of the reason why we had that optimism early on, and then that we just never saw that again. But no, you're right. That's a good shot. I'd forgotten about that result initially. But it's kind of like I said earlier. Once again, we don't need to beat Bayern. We don't need to beat teams in the top four. We need to limit the damage against those teams. So we're not, shipping 3 goals and losing 3-0. As long as we keep it 1-0, 2-0, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then we need to be more competitive against, mid-table and below. And, if we can beat a team like Mainz 1-0, who's sitting in, right at mid-table, essentially, that bodes well for us. And I think that we are capable of that with the talent that we have. Just need to be more consistent, need to be healthy. Yeah. And we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else you want to touch up on Schalke?
I don't think so. Just that I wish Mayo Yoshida. Oh, I will mention this. Schalke released a pretty detailed statement or something talking about their kind of stance on the World Cup, and they will not be covering the World Cup outside of providing, I think what they said were brief and factual updates on Mayo Yoshida's games. So they are exclusively providing updates on how he's doing and how Japan are doing. And they're also, putting pressure on the DFB to use whatever, publicity and opportunity they have during the World Cup to kind of make the appropriate statements reflecting everything. I mean, I'll be the first to admit I'm going to be a massive hypocrite. I'm going to be watching the U.S. in the World Cup. I'm not boycotting.
I was considering doing USA and Germany streams, but maybe not after Schalke's comments.
Well, no, I think the German fans, have been you've seen a lot of displays in stadiums recently about them encouraging to boycott the World Cup. I totally understand and support anyone doing that. I think it's a joke that Qatar was awarded the World Cup. I think you're already seeing very concerning things about the way they're treating, like changes in alcohol, changes in the way that media are allowed to cover. You're seeing journalists that are just standing on streets, trying to record something, and they're trying to shut down recording. I mean, it's an absolute, it just underscores how hopelessly corrupt and morally bankrupt FIFA is as an organization. But I will be a hypocrite and watch it anyway, so I'm just stating that now. But I appreciate Schalke releasing that statement, though, and like I said, wish Maya Yoshida a healthy and successful World Cup, and looking forward to the second half of the season.
Germany-Japan final, maybe? I don't
We'll
think so. We'll see. Both teams are a long shot at this point, right? But more so Japan, I would say. But you never know. You never know. Crazier things have happened. Yeah, like that. I'll probably be a hypocrite too. I'll probably watch definitely USA, Germany games, and obviously Japan because Yoshida's going to be there. But other than that, yeah, I'll be a hypocrite for sure. May stream some games too. Who knows? Pass the time. But yeah, we got 2 months off, so we got to figure something out. We'll find some old friends to chat with here on the podcast. So yeah, good talk. I mean, it's only so much we can say in the first half because it was a dismal first half. You know, a couple highlights, a couple wins. Obviously, stark improvement under Rice, but it's only been 2 games. We'll see how it continues. We need this off season, this World Cup break to really mold the team how he wants it. Rice and yeah, we'll see. Time will tell. But yeah, Jack, anything you want to plug before we get out of this joint?
Just my Twitter, JMMangan, JMMANGAN. On the old, actually, I shouldn't plug Twitter. Who knows if Twitter's going to be around or functioning by the time we come back, given all the developments over on that end. But
yeah, YouTube. Find us on YouTube.
I wish everybody a healthy and enjoyable holiday season, whatever you celebrate with friends and loved ones. And yeah, we'll see you back here.
Yeah, wonderful. You can follow me at R_KHARMAN on social media, not just Twitter. And obviously follow us on YouTube if you're not doing it already. Definitely subscribe and like our page here. It'll help with the algorithms and get us out to more Schalke fans around the world. We are SchalkeMerica, but we are certainly global brands. So yeah, enjoy the holidays, everyone. You too, Jack. Enjoy the World Cup if you decide to watch it. If not, we support that. So for Jack, I'm Richard. Enjoy the time off. Glück auf.